Greetings, traveler.
Hey guys, Shady Bunny here with a review of the Kobolds and Catacombs set. We're gonna dive right in. We're gonna go over every card this time. We'll be starting with the neutral commons and make our way up like that, seeing as the neutral commons are the most exciting ones when it comes to Arena, because these are the cards we'll be seeing a lot, right? Alright, let's dive right in. I'm gonna start with the Stone Skin Basilisk. It's a 3-mana 1/1 Divine Shield Poisonous. At first glance, this is a little weak, but then you remind yourself, oh, Scarlet Crusader is just Divine Shield 1. Huh. And she's pretty good. And she deals 3, so the only way the Basilisk is worse than that is if you want to push damage early, because he'll only be doing 1 phase damage. But he's got Poisonous. So this thing can just kill a Tar Creeper and survive, and then still be a 1/1 Poisonous on the board. Just like your Scarlet Crusader would be a 3/1. So in terms of survivability, it's essentially the same. Obviously there are some beats, like obviously Silence is a bit worse on this thing, it can get Kodoed, etc. But overall, this looks like a pretty good card. So it's something that will be extremely annoying for non-ping classes or anyone that doesn't have an efficient way of dealing with it. So yeah, I'm expecting to see this card a decent amount, so probably going to be looking for some more pings, ways to deal with this, because yeah, if you can't deal with it, it's just going to kill 2 minions. That's pretty nasty. Alright. Next up, we got the Wax Elemental. It's a 0/2 for 1, but it's got Taunt and Divine Shield. I mean, it kind of wants to be an Annoyotron, like hello, 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 but at 0 damage, how annoying can it really be? You know, in before, you know, it absorbs 2 Deathwing hits, but yeah, I don't think we're gonna like it. We just see this over and over again, like when the card, like there's no pressure on it, it's just annoying, and obviously when it gets buffed, it gets a lot better, but then it requires some work from your end, so I'm not too excited about this card. Alright, next we have the Violet Worm. 8 mana 7/7, Death Rattle, summon 7 1/1 grubs. Huh. Let's see what else we play at 7 mana. Let's say the Treshadon. This is 8 mana though, yeah. So yeah, 7, alright. Still, a 7/7, say the Treshadon's a 5/7. This thing already has 2 more damage, so it's really relevant, and it summons 7 1/1 grubs. So unless you have AoE, you're not even sure you want to kill this thing, because it's just going to replace itself in terms of damage, assuming it's the only minion on the board, of course. There's a lot of upside with any kind of AoE buffing going on. Let's say a Druid plays this with Mark of the Lotus, Power of the Wild, Shaman with Bloodlust. So I don't think it'll be like crazy, like oh my god, overpowered. But I think it'll see some play. Just, you know, if you need that fatty to round out your curve, just pick it up, because it seems rather sticky. Obviously at 8 mana, you do want your minion to be really powerful. It's not going to be a Lich King or anything, but still, I think it'll see some play. All right, next up we have the Trog Gloom Eater. Taunt Poisonous and a 1/5. The first thought that came to mind when I saw this was, this is the card that Venomancer wants to be. You pick a Venomancer from time to time, and this has Taunt. So I mean, the damage on a Poisonous minion is somewhat irrelevant, right? Sure, you push less face damage, but I'd gladly sacrifice 1 stat point to get Taunt on my Poisonous minion. So yeah, this looks really annoying. I don't think it's going to be, once again, I don't think it's going to be crazy overpowered. It's just going to be really annoying, and in some situations it can just, you know, win you the game or win the opponent the game. If this thing is going to eat a Yeti and then still survive, and then you don't have a ping and it's going to kill something else. It can also just stall out the game quite long, because usually when an opponent plays a small damage, decently sized health taunt minion, you can just attack it with multiple minions. Say your opponent plays a Mogushan Warden, you just go, alright, my 3/3 is going to go in, my 2/3 is going to go in, and then whichever else minion to round it out. If you do that with this guy, then you lose your board. So that's, yeah, it looks like a really, really annoying minion. So I don't doubt that we'll be seeing him in a decent amount of drafts. Alright, next up we have the Toothy Chest. 3 mana 0/4 at the start of your turn. Set this minion's attack to 4. I mean, it's not a 3 mana 4/4. It's like Validated Doomsayer, you have to wait a turn. A Validated Doomsayer is a 7/7 for 5, which in my opinion is quite a bit better than a 4/4 for 3. So it's too annoying. Like, people will just attack it. Like, your opponent's 3/2 will just attack into it, and then you'll have a 4/1 for 3. That's like, whatever. So, on the rare occasion you can play this and it goes completely untouched, sure, you have a 4/4, but it's so conditional, so I don't really like it. I don't think it's a good card. Alright. Next up we have the Sneaky Devil. 4 mana 2/2 stealth whenever your other minions... your other minions have +1 attack, yeah. So my first reaction when I looked at this card was... that's still kind of my current reaction. I don't know, it's a 4 mana 2/2, right? Other 4 mana 2/2s is like the Kobold, right? The spell damage Kobold, but +2 spell damage. This thing gives all your other minions +1 attack and it's stealth, so... Sure, over time you could get your value out of this, but that requires a lot of minions to be on the board. That requires this guy not to get AoE'd. That requires you to not get wrecked by the tempo loss you get. Because essentially you're paying 4 mana for something that isn't going to do any combat for a while, because you're going to want to keep this guy stealth. So I don't like him, Sneaky Devil. I don't think it's a good card. Alright. Next we have the Shroom Brewer. 4 mana 4/4, Battlecry, restore 4 health. Yeah, this looks pretty good. There's some nice combo potential with cards like Auchenai Soul Priest. But also, if you look at a super playable / decent card, we have the Alchemist for Priests. 5 mana 4/5, that will restore 5 health. This is a 4 mana 4/4, so you only lose 1 stat point and 1 point on the healing. And honestly, healing 4, healing 5 usually is kind of the same. You overheal with the Alchemist a decent amount of the time. So yeah, I predict this card to be pretty decent. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be batshit crazy, but yeah, super decent. Like, you'll have it. Sometimes it'll save you because it heals the face. Sometimes it'll just heal up your 5/5 that killed something. It's now a 5/2. It's up back again to a 5/5. It's kind of like you gave that minion +3 additional health, right? So, yep, seems pretty good. Alright, Sewer Crawler, 3 mana 1/1, Battlecry, summon a 2/3 giant rat. That's a Razorfen Hunter. Cool, let's move on. I mean, this card has some upside. You can brew it back, play it again, get a bit more value out of it like that, but I mean, even the cost, it's kind of, yeah, it's Razorfen Hunter. Let's be honest, right? Alright, cool. Next up, Plated Beetle. Alright, that's our first 2-drop, I think. 2 mana 2/3, Death Roller, gain 3 armor. Yeah, I mean, anything that's statted as a 3/2 or a 2/3 and does something beneficial, that's alright, you know, that's good. I mean, I don't think 3 armor is going to be super crazy, although we do see some conditions later in the card review where armor is going to be a trigger for certain cards. So in those classes, it's probably even better, but overall, it's just pretty good. It's also a beast, so for hunters, for druids, super helpful. Yeah, totally decent card. All right. Oh man, this card. So next up, we have the Green Jelly. 5 mana 3/3. At the end of your turn, summon a 1/2 ooze with Taunt. That's kind of like they just printed a common Hogger, right? I'm not going to say it's as good as Hogger, although, you know, yeah, okay, it's not as good as Hogger, but still, I mean, Hogger is a fairly powerful win condition. This thing's a common, so anytime you have control of the board and this thing just keeps going off, keeps pooping out little taunts, that's going to be really annoying for your opponent. It's like, I mean, obviously it's also not as strong as an Obsidian Destroyer. That was a 7/7 for 7. This is a 3/3 for 5, so there is a stat penalty, a decent stat penalty on this card. But still, just to be a common, available for everyone, and it keeps spawning out taunts, this can be super frustrating, right? If you're so close to killing the opponent, but there's just a 1/2 taunt every single turn, absorbing something every single turn. So yeah, I don't think this card is bad at all. I think we're going to see a decent amount of it. It's once again, it's mainly one of those things where you need to look at your archetype of your deck. Can you get this card going? Because obviously when you play it and it dies in the very same turn you played it, it's like you played a pretty bad Silverhand Knight. You've played, instead of a 5-mana 4/4 and a 2/2, you've played a 5-mana 3/3 and a 1/2. Now the 1/2 has taunt, so sure there's some upside there. But if you can keep this guy alive for 2, 3, 4, even more turns, yeah, it totally gets his return. So probably not amazing in like a super off the board deck, but any deck that has a good chance of grabbing the board early, sure, something nice to reinforce the board with. Okay, Fungal Enchanter, 3-mana 3/3 Battlecry, restore 2 health to all friendly characters. Whoa, damn. I mean, I don't think the power creep in this set is as crazy as it has been in KFT and Angoro. That has to be said. But yeah, 3-mana 3/3 is acceptable. It's not premium stat or anything, but it's totally acceptable. And then it has a Darkscale Healer effect. And we like Darkscale Healer, so I think we'll be liking this guy. Seems pretty darn decent to me. 2 health to all friendly characters, yeah. It's just good. Just good. Alright. Next up, the Dragon Slayer. Oh man, this card. So it's a 3-mana 4/3. Battlecry deals 6 damage to a dragon. Now when you look at the effect, you're like, it's pretty conditional. It's like, oh wow, you're a 3-mana 4/3. Yeah, cool, I'll draft you. So stats are close to premium. Like 3/4, 4/4 for me is premium. 4/3 is above average, and 3/3 is average, right? So this card is just going to be really annoying because we'll be reviewing a very decent dragon card that's going to be a common soon, and this particular interaction, I'll just go over the card right now if I get it right. So the dragon I'm talking about is the Hoarding Dragon, which is a 4-mana 5/6 death rattle. Give your opponent 2 coins. Now we've seen 4-mana 5/6 dragons before. Was a Hungry Dragon. Wasn't that great because it summoned a minion for your opponent. This thing only does something when it dies. So first of all, you need to recover from a 4-mana 5/6, right? And then it gives you coins. Now obviously coins, that's good, right? You can get your tempo back, but this thing is probably going to survive for 2 turns, if not longer, unless you hard remove it, right? So this particular interaction, Dragon Slayer killing Hoarding Dragon, is going to happen a decent amount of the time. And it's just one of those stupid things where your pirate gets Golakad, and you're just sitting there like, I guess I deserve to lose, right? But I mean, we're all going to be drafting Hoarding Dragon, I assume. I might be really wrong about this card, obviously. Maybe the coins are like a much bigger drawback than I anticipate, but a 4-mana 5/6 on turn 4, that's strong. That's just good. We've all seen how much work Keening Banshee puts in. So this guy has an additional health, and you're not milling a ton of your deck, so you're not afraid at all. Like, you don't have to trade it off. You don't have that drawback. So yeah, it's just, another stupid interaction where it's like, oh no, I guess I lose because I played a dragon and you had Dragon Slayer. But still, we like Hoarding Dragon and we like the Dragon Slayer. Alright, moving on. Dire Mold, a 1-mana 1/3. I mean, Malchezaar's Imp is fine because it does something extra. This is also fine, right? It's a 1-drop. It's a beast. It can ping. But yeah, there's not much more to be said about it. It's fine. You'll pick it sometimes. That's cool. Nothing too crazy. Alright, Corrosive Sludge, 5-mana 5/5. Battlecry, destroy your opponent's weapon. Sure. 5-mana 5/5s are fine. And this thing destroys a weapon. Hey. We like that. Right? Nothing too crazy, just a solid card. Alright. Bolsterous Bard, Battlecry. Give your other minions +1 health. It's a 3-mana 3/2. So the immediate comparison we make is the Shattered Sun Cleric, which gives your minion +1 attack as well. But this guy buffs AoE. So obviously on curve it's probably going to be worse than a Shattered Sun Cleric. But later in the game it's probably going to be better than a Shattered Sun Cleric because you're going to be buffing multiple minions. So yeah, I'll definitely be playtesting this guy. I think with these cards it's always a little bit more difficult to see whether they're going to be good enough. I think this guy is going to be good enough definitely to be drafted, but what I'm not sure of is whether he's going to be like, wow, yeah, I got a Bolsterous Bard, or he's like, yeah, sure, fine, it's cool, I'll pick it. So, alright. Moving on to the next card, a Kobold Apprentice. 3-mana 2/1, so the stats are a little but the battle cry. Deal 3 damage randomly split among all enemies. So it's a mad bomber where you won't be raging super hard. Or well, maybe you will because it didn't hit the right ones, but at least it's not going to kill your guys or your face. I'm having a hard time evaluating this one because you do lose a lot of stats for it being a 3-drop. Most 3-drops will be a 3/3 or a 3/4. This guy is a 2/1. But dealing 3 damage guaranteed among all enemies, this could be pretty good. It's something that I'm gonna need to playtest. But yeah, I definitely advise people to try it out, especially with the minion we mentioned earlier, the Basilisk, the Stone Skin Basilisk. It's a 1/1 poisons Divine Shield. So this card could be a very, very, very good counter to that card. So yeah, it's a card to keep our eye on. Definitely going to be testing it out. All right, next here is the Sleepy Dragon, a big ass dragon. We got a 9-mana 4/12. You're like, it's like Ysera, but without Ysera's effect. Oh, it has Taunt. Huh. So yeah, they always have to be like super big cards like this are always tough to evaluate because it depends on the meta and how often you're going to be able to get that card off. When North Sea Kraken was revealed back in the day, people were like, it's a 9-mana card, I'll never, like it's fine, it's cool, but it's not going to go off that often. And then obviously North Sea Kraken became one of the most meta-defining cards we've ever seen. So I'm having a hard time calling Sleepy Dragon. It's obviously going to be super annoying when you don't have a hard removal and you're an aggressive deck. But then again, your opponent does have to wait until turn 9. And it's not a card that's going to be pushing a lot of damage. So on this card, I'm also having a hard time looking at it simply because it's also going to be meta dependent. How's the meta going to look? How the offering rate's going to look? So this is one of those cards I'm going to have to feel. But yeah, my initial reaction is it's going to be at least playable. I'll have to see whether it goes from playable to good or excellent, but right now, for me, it's just playable. All right. Next up, another somewhat difficult card to see. It's the Fungomancer. It's a 5-mana 2/2, which is already a little sketchy, but it gives your adjacent minions +2/+2, or his adjacent minions. So the immediate comparison we want to make is the Sunborn Valkyr, which gives your adjacent minions +2 health, and she's a 5-mana 5/4. So the stats are a lot better on the Valkyr, but she doesn't give you additional attack. So I would say that this card is a decent amount worse than Valkyr, but Valkyr is a really good card. Right now I'm going to go with below average on this one. Obviously, there are going to be some cases where this card is nuts and you get the perfect trades and everything is super nice. But you can't really play it standalone, and if it buffs one guy, it's not really that impressive for it being a 2/2 body. Now, if that one trait is going to put you really far ahead on the board, then maybe it's worth. So right now, I don't think it's anywhere near a Sunborn Valkyr, but I'm still going to be very happy to test it out and see if it can prove me wrong. Yeah. A lot of difficult cards in a row. So the next one is the Cursed Disciple. I mean, difficult for me, right? A 4-mana 5/1 Death Rattle, summon a 5/1 Revenant. So it's basically a 5/1 with redemption built in. That can be super annoying if your opponent, you know, or if you can't ping, or you don't have any small minions. Like if this thing comes down into a Yeti and you're a priest and you're just sitting there, it's like, ugh, right? That's really annoying. That's really dirty. On the other hand, you know, you play this thing and you're a rogue and you go like, lol, Perdition's Blade, kill it in one go, right? So I think it's going to be pretty dependent. I don't think it's going to be all that, but once again, it's a card that can surprise me. But right now, I don't think it's that good. All right, cool. Next, we have the Silver Vanguard. 7 mana, 3/3, Death Rattle, recruit an 8-cost minion. Nah. Right? This is more something you want to build in like a constructed combo deck or so. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near playable in Arena. Now, obviously, it might be very wrong, but it feels like it's not going to be near playable. You're just paying 3 mana. You're just paying 7 mana for a 3/3. That's just like you're losing so much tempo on it, right? All right, and then the last of the common cards, the Guild Recruiter. 5 mana, 2/4, Battlecry, recruit a minion that costs 4 or less. So I would say that this usually will pull like a 2-drop, and then a decent amount of the time a 3-drop, and then sometimes a 4-drop. It depends how your deck looks. So if it pulls a 2-drop, you can compare it to Silverhand Knight. Silverhand Knight's a 4/4 that pulls a 2/2. This is like maybe a 2/4 that pulls a 3/2. Which is really not worth it. So once again, my initial look at the card is, I don't really want to deal with the randomness. Now, if you have a deck that has very few 2s, lots of 4s, lots of premium 3s, then maybe. So it'll be deck dependent, but once again, my initial reaction to the card is probably not going to draft it that much. All right, that's it for the common cards. Alright guys, moving on to the neutral rares. First up, we have the Shrieking Shroom, a 3 mana 1/2. At the end of your turn, summon a random 1-cost minion. I mean, we can kind of compare it to Primal Fin Totem, but this thing costs 3 and it summons. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Once again, this is like maybe. I mean, obviously you can high roll your 1-drop, right? Get a really good card. But overall, I don't think this card is going to be that good. It could be really annoying if your opponent gets it going and then he high rolls. You could also just get a Hive Queen and destroy your curve, you know. But yeah, overall, doesn't look like it's going to be that good. All right, next we have the Kobold Monk. So I'm going to start with the text. Your hero can be targeted by spells or hero powers. And you're like, I mean, whatever, right? And then you look at the stats, you're like, oh, a 4 mana 3/6, cool. So stats of a Water Rally doesn't have a freeze, but it's the stats of a Water Rally. So yeah, cool. We'll be picking this card. 4 mana 3/6s are good. Yep. All right. Next up, we have the Gravel Snout Knight. A 1 mana 2/3, so could be a nice combo with the Shrieking Shrew. But Battlecry, summon a random 1-cost minion for your opponent. This card is also tough to read because obviously at a 1 mana 2/3, you're very happy with the stat line, but giving your opponent a random 1-cost minion, there's again so much RNG involved, right? I really disliked Hungry Dragon, and this is like Hungry Dragon on turn 1. But it doesn't have the like significant stat upside, I would say, that Hungry Dragon had. So I don't think I'll be liking this card too much. Obviously your opponent can just high roll and get another Gravel Snout Knight or Gravel Snout Knight. Or you could get, you know, a 1/1. And then if your opponent gets a 1/1, this card is fine, right? It's probably more than fine. You can make the comparison, like we have like Mistress of Mixtures or a Raven, that's a 2/2. So if this thing attacks the 1/1, it is then also a 2/2. 2/2 without the downside of healing your opponent. So that's fine. But if it rolls a 2/1, suddenly becomes a 2/1 itself, and you've given your opponent initiative. So yeah, I don't really like the card that much. All right, next we have the Ebon Dragonsmith. Battle Cry, reduce the cost of a random weapon in your hand by 2, and it's a 4-mana 3/4, and it's a dragon itself. So I like that they print weak dragons because Bone Drake was getting out of control, or that they have printed a weaker dragon. But the effect just seems like it's a little bit too conditional for you to play a 4-mana 3/4. Now obviously if you have a warrior deck with a ton of weapons, you might want this thing, but I think for most of the time it's just going to be a 4-mana 3/4 that we don't like. So just moving on. Maybe, you know, priests will pick this up to activate dragon synergy, but overall I don't expect to see a lot of dragonsmiths. Okay, interesting card now. 5-mana 1/1. Furbulk Mossbinder. Battlecry. Transform a friendly minion into a 6/6 elemental. Yeah. It's okay, so let's just imagine the scenario, right? You have a 4-drop that just killed off your opponent's 4-drop and it's on 1 health. Let's say Yeti to make it easy. You then transform that Yeti into a 6/6 and you then have a 1/1. So next turn you'll have a 6/6 and a 1/1, whereas if you would normally have played, you would have had like a 4/6 and a 4/1. So I think I prefer a 4/6 and a 4/1 over a 6/6 and a 1/1, although that's kind of close, right? Now where it gets better is where you can obviously transform one of your weaker minions, like a 1/1 or maybe even the 0 to Divine Shield, right? You turn that into a 6/6. Because then it's good. Then you've just played a 5-mana 6/6. So in a deck where you have a lot of small cost minions, maybe a Zoo Warlock or so, I think this will be fine. Then you just have a 6/6 on 5 and it comes with a 1/1 body. But obviously the 1/1 body is probably the 1/1 body you've lost. So it's definitely not just a 6/6 for 5. It does have that requirement. So I don't think I'm gonna like this card too much, just because you can't just jam it on curve if you have an empty board. Right? All right, next up the Hungry Etten. 6-mana 4/10 Taunt. Hello. But then it summons a 2-drop for your opponent. But still, I mean, at 6 mana, low damage, high health Taunt, you can think Ancient of Blossoms. Blossoms is a 3/6. So that 2-drop is probably not going to deal more than 3 damage to this thing, because then you still have a 4/7. So obviously you can roll a Doomsayer, obviously you can roll some other minions. Well, I mean, Doomsayer is not even necessarily bad. If you're losing really hard and you jam this thing, your opponent gets Doomsayer, board gets removed. You can give your opponent a Millhouse, sure, that would suck. But even then, right, it's still like 4-mana 4/6, 6-mana 4/6. So overall, I think this card is actually going to be pretty good, the Hungry Etten. Might be wrong in it. It's always hard to call these things that summon cards for your opponent, but I think this might be one that I do enjoy drafting, because 4/10 Taunt, that's a lot of stats for 6 mana. Alright, now we have a pretty powerful card in my opinion. The Lone Champion. At 3 mana it's a 2/4, and if you control no other minions, it'll gain Taunt and Divine Shield. So as a 3 mana 2/4, let's say you have Death Speaker, sometimes you just play Death Speaker on curve and that's fine. Now, controlling no other minions is not that hard. If you've played a 2 and your opponent plays a 2, you trade the 2s and then you play this guy, and then you have a 2/4 Taunt Divine Shield. That's strong. So yeah, this is just a strong card. It'll solve a lot of curve problems if you don't have a lot of 2s and you're falling behind. You just jam this thing and it's probably going to kill 1.5 card, if not more. So looking strong. All right, we're closing it out with the Feral Gibberer, the new meme card of the set, the new Weasel Tunneler. So after this minion attacks a hero, add a copy of it to your hand. So yeah, just another meme card. Just funny, right? Funny little guy. Making more Gibberers. Yeah. Probably Twitch chat's new favorite. Alright, and that is it for the neutral rares. Alright, and guys, next up we have the neutral epics. going to start off with the Corridor Creeper. 7 mana 5/5, costs 1 less whenever a minion dies while this is in your hand. So that seems like there's some potential there. But then you'd have to keep this card early, and then you're keeping a 7-drop in your hand. And that's going to ruin your curve a bit. But yeah, getting 3 minions to die before, you know, turn 4, that's kind of a tough task to do. So not a card you'll be keeping in your mulligan, and then if you're not keeping it in your mulligan, then meh, do I really want this thing? Because probably not. I mean, there are some decks where it could be cool, where you have a lot of token minions, and you can just, you know, you summon a bunch of Silverhand recruits, you kill them off, this thing gets really cheap. I think for most decks it's not going to be that good, but if your deck has a lot of tokens, there might be some potential for this thing to just boom, come out of nowhere and just put a 0 mana 5/5 on the board. So actually, the more I think about it, yeah, it's so tough, right? Because it takes up a slot in your hand, but it can come out as a 0 mana 5/5, which is pretty cool. Oh, whenever a minion dies, huh? All right, so I thought this was only friendly minion. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot better. You're getting my initial reaction here, guys, because up till now I thought it was only a friendly minion. I think then I like it. Yeah. So if you keep this thing in your opening hand, and the 2-drops trade with each other, it becomes a 5 mana 5/5. Then the 3-drops trade with each other, it becomes a 3 mana 5/5. So not necessarily something you'll keep in your opening hand, but if you draw it later on, it will come out fairly cheap, and it will help you just swing the board back, kind of like a Prophet. So yeah, probably a decent card then. All right, next up, Shimmering Courser. The pony, 4 mana 3/3. Only you can target this with spells and hero powers. I think it's a card that like you won't be like super happy to pick, but it'll be super annoying if your opponent gets a buff off on it, like a paladin. If this gets buffed with Steed, you're just like, eh? What? Hello? Damn. So yeah, overall, I don't think it's a crazy card, but it'll be annoying in some cases for sure. But I don't think it's something you'll be drafting a ton. The next card, however, 3 mana 3/3, so stat line is okay. Battlecry, swap the attack and health of all other minions. Wow. Confusion. Right? Everything swapping. This card is going to be really annoying to play around, because you're constantly going to have to think like, what if he flips everything? You know, your opponent has 2 Stegodons and you're on 12. It's like, well, if he has a Void Ripper, I'm dead. So yeah, I think this card is going to be cool. It's going to be tough to play with as well, because you're going to have to evaluate the board every single turn, because you might be missing something. Because it's going to be switching your minions as well as their minions, so that's a lot of interactions to keep track of. Like, okay, if this gets flipped, how does it trade with that guy? But he also has that guy, is that bad for me? So yeah, fun card, and yeah, it'll probably get you some wins out of nowhere. It's also a neutral demon, so Illidan gets some company. Alright, moving on. Dragon Hatcher, a 9 mana 2/4 at the end of your turn, recruit a dragon. It's a 9 mana 2/4. You might not even have dragons. Even in the deck where you have dragons, you're probably not going to have drafted Ysera or something, which is pretty much the only reason you'd want this, right? If you have a Ysera or you have a Deathwing and you pull this out. So, nah, I don't like it. Arcane Tyrant, 5 mana 4/4. It's an elemental, and it costs 0 if you've cast a spell that costs 5 or more this turn. Yeah, that can create a huge swing, right? So obviously you're not going to want it in decks that don't have a lot of spells or expensive spells, but in decks that have a lot of expensive spells, sure, why not? So once again, I don't think it's a crazy card, but in certain decks it can have it can have potential for sure. All right, the Grand Archivist, 8 mana 4/7. At the end of your turn, cast a spell from your deck. Targets chosen randomly. Yeah, they have a lot of these effects, and I'm not a huge fan of them. Honestly, I think it's one of those things that you're rarely going to draft, and it's one of those things that your opponents will probably try, and sometimes they'll get away with it, and oftentimes they won't, and it'll just be like meh, or even blows up in their face. Whenever this thing flame strikes you, you're gonna be really sad, and sometimes it's gonna polymorph itself. So, you know, that's pretty much, you know, the extent of the stuff it can do. It's gonna be annoying when it works, but most of the time you're not gonna want to draft it. All right, next up we have the Spiteful Summoner, 6 mana 4/4. Reveal a spell from your deck. Summon a random minion with the same cost. So at a 6 mana 4/4, it is quite understated. But obviously, if we pull a 5-drop spell from our deck and we get a 5-drop, you've paid 6 mana for a 4/4 and a 5-drop, which is probably going to be a pretty good deal. So, as with the Arcane Tyrant, you're probably not going to want this card unless your deck has a decent amount of high-cost spells in it. So, more of a combo-esque card, something that might see play in those decks, but I don't think it's going to be a super common card. All right, maybe finally a reason to draft card to my side, right? all right. It's a spoiler, right? If you don't know that card, we'll have some fun reviewing it in a bit. All right, next up we have the Rummaging Kobold, 3 mana 1/3. Battlecry, return one of your destroyed weapons to your hand. Once again, like maybe in a deck with a ton of weapons. Like the initial reaction is like, wow, yeah, maybe you can get your Shadow Blade back to your hand, but it's a 3 mana 1/3. It's just too understated. You might not even have a weapon destroyed at that point, so I don't like the card. All right, the last of the neutral epics is the Carnivorous Cube. This one I find kind of hard to read because, okay, so it's a 5 mana 4/6. Battlecry, destroy a friendly minion. Death Rattle, summon 2 copies of it. So initially you think, whoa, this thing is so much value. But the requirement is it's not optional, right? You have to kill something. So if you're just tempoing out, right, you're just jamming a 4/4, jamming a 5/5, and your 4-drop isn't damaged, then that's pretty risky because you have to wait until the cube dies, until you get your Yeti back, or your Yetis back rather. And then it can get silenced, it can get polymorphed, it can get sapped, it can get, stuck in a freezing trap or so. So the upside is pretty huge. And obviously if you eat a wounded minion, or if you eat a just in general a smaller minion that's already done its job, or you eat a beneficial Death Rattle minion, right? So I think it's going to have turns where you eat a Rat Pack and it's like, what the fuck? you're gonna get 2 more Rat Packs once it dies, and you've procced a Rat Pack's Death Rattle. There's definitely potential for this card to be good. Now, at the very least, it's a 5 mana 4/6. If the board is empty, you just play it, and then it's a 4/6, which is good. So I'm definitely going to be trying this card out, but I'm finding it hard to call just because the initial tempo loss of losing the body might be too bad, right? But interesting card for sure. We're in some testing. Alrighty, and now we're moving on to the neutral legendaries. There's usually not, there's really not that much interesting in here, so let's just start. We got the Darkness, a 4 mana 20/20. What? Are you insane? That's good. Oh, but it can't do anything. Okay, it's cool. So it starts dormant, which means that it's just going to be on the board, and you won't be able to interact with it, nor can your opponent. It's like Sherazan, or Sherazin, I think. The rogue plant that goes dormant once she dies, and then you have to cast 4 cards, and then she comes back. So the condition for the Darkness is that it shuffles 3 candles in the enemy deck, and whenever your opponent draws a candle, this thing gets gets a counter, right? So there's 3 candles. If you get all 3 candles drawn, this thing can attack. So the candles itself won't block your draw. they're just going to make you draw another card. So you draw the kind of like the Nerubian ambushes. You draw the card, poof, it does its thing, and then you get another card instead. So yeah, a bit of a meme card. Sometimes it'll happen that it's gonna attack at a reasonable time, but like with the card, the ambush, keep in mind that all 3 candles need to be drawn before this thing can do anything, right? So that's just so much time and so much RNG that I think in Arena, nah, we don't want this card. All right, Master O card, 9 mana 5/5 battle cry. Recruit a 1, 2, and 3 attack minion. I think it's more something, you know, you're gonna want to combo and construct it. It's a 9 mana 5/5. So let's look at what it would summon. Like maybe a Tar Creeper for the 1 attack if you're lucky, right? So then you get a Tar Creeper, a 2/3, and a 3/3. That's a lot of stuff for 9 mana, right? But obviously, if you don't get the Tar Creeper, it's like, or you don't even have a 1 power minion left in your deck, then you get like a 2/3 and a 3/3. So at 9 mana, and especially as legendary, I don't think it's all that. So maybe in very specific drafts where you can like, oh my god, this combo's crazy, but usually, nah, I think I'd stay away from it. All right, another meme card. Man, the legendaries are just memes, man. They're just memed hard with the legendaries. An 8 mana 5/5. So stats are terrible, right? Battle cry, swap decks with your opponent, give them a ransom spell to swap back. So the effect isn't even like good on the board, right? So yeah, meme card. If you want to have some fun, sure, pick it up, but it's not that great. So the ransom spell is a 5 mana card that just swaps the decks back. So sure, but I mean, if you want to draft a super shitty deck and then add King Togwaggle to your deck, you need to make it to turn 8 with a super shitty deck. So, you know, that's probably not going to happen as well. All right, next up is Zola the Gorgon, a 3 mana 2/2, so quite understated. Battlecry, choose a friendly minion, add a golden copy of it to your hand. So sure, it's fun. You get a golden card, but obviously that doesn't do anything in the game itself other than look nice. And what if it's already golden to begin with, man? What a loss of value. All right, so you could compare this card to like Cabal Courier, but then you remember that Cabal Courier doesn't need you to have a minion on board. It can pick you a spell or a minion. It can pick you cards from other classes, so you have interactions that shouldn't be possible. It can get you Death Knights. So yeah, overall, we're not too impressed with Zola the Gorgon. All right, then Marin, you guys have played with Marin already. 8 mana 6/6, summons a chest for your opponent. If you kill the chest, you get a crazy card. We'll go over them just for the review's sake. The Master's Chest is a 0/8, right? So after you kill that, it will drop either the Golden Kobold, which is a 3 mana 6/6 taunt, Battlecry, replace your hand with legendary minions. Like, the cards are nuts, right? Like, I'm not here reviewing the cards. Like, Toland's Goblet is 3 mana, draw a card, fill your hands with copies of it, and then Wondrous Wand, draw 3 cards, reduce their cost to 0. So obviously, these things are nuts, right? These things are amazing. Oh, and then Zarok's Crown, discover a legendary minion, summon 2 copies of it. I actually lost to this when an opponent discovered 2 Deathwings. That was kind of hard to deal with. But, you know, it's 8 mana 6/6. You have to kill the chest. It's like fine. You'll pick it sometimes, right? And it'll sometimes be the best card. But most of the time, it's not really going to be worth it compared to the other legendaries. All right, guys, and that was it for the neutral cards.